Welcome to StaarCast, a show about tarot, divination, and all things mystical. StaarCast is a celebration of StaarCon, the Southeastern Tarot Artist and Readers Conference. I'm Amy Mauser, and here's your host, Christiana Gaudet.
Thank you for that introduction, Amy. I'm Christiana Gaudet. It is great to be here, and today I have a very special guest with me. One of our headline speakers, Benebell Wen, is with me. Benebell, thank you so much for being here. How are you?
Hi, Christiana. I'm good. I'm glad to be here with you.
I am so excited. You were, I think, the very first person. I think you were the very first person I reached out to when we had this crazy idea to do a conference. I was like, wouldn't it be cool if Benebell Wen could do it?
Oh, I'm flattered.
Yes. So I'm so excited. And I'm so excited to be speaking with you here today. Of course, you really need no introduction. Most of us know you as the author of Holistic Tarot, the author of The Tao of Craft, and maybe most recently, the designer of Spirit Keepers Tarot.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I'm a deck creator. Imagine that.
Well, and that is such an interesting thing. So, because when you and I first spoke, I guess it was over email when you were writing Holistic Tarot, was it always in you to create a deck? Was that something you always would do? No. So tell me.
No, in fact, what's really funny is I'm pretty sure there are recorded interviews out there where people had asked me that question in 2015, 2016, even maybe up to 2017. People are like, oh, are you going to make a deck? Are you going to collaborate? I'm like, no, I'm never going to make a deck. You know, like I just was so flat out, like, you know what I mean? So sure of myself. Mm-hmm. It's the reason I believe that was because I work with the thoughts of Marseille, the Rider-Waite Smith, and I felt like, what can I add to that? And if you want to create a derivative or an artistic derivative, you have professional artists who know what they're doing, creating, the clones and the derivatives of these decks. So what can I contribute to the world of tarot decks? I didn't feel like I had anything to contribute other than just sort of like an exercise of my ego. So that's the reason I was pretty sure I was never going to create a tarot deck, because I didn't want to create one just because. And then, of course, SKT happened.
So more, how did that happen?
Okay. So I think it was in 2018. This is so funny. It's such a millennial thing. I was tweeting. I was on Twitter, like with a glass of wine, right? And I was just like, shooting off my mouth, like, wouldn't it be funny if like I made a deck by hand and I did this and I did that, right? And I tweeted it. And then, I had some side conversations with people. And then for some reason, as I was going to sleep that night, I think it was a Wednesday night. How specific is that? As I was going to sleep, I was thinking, well, why don't I? What's the harm? It's just for myself. I'm just hand drawing a couple of cards just for me. It's not for anybody. I can do whatever I want. There's no wrong way to do it if it's just a deck that I'm creating for myself. So the next morning I woke up and I drew a couple of cards, and then I decided to start from keys. I wanted to go in order. I would not allow myself to skip around. I had to go in order from the majors to the minors in a very specific order. So I did that. And then I just got sucked into the project, like something took over. I did feel like I entered some kind of a long-term trance. And even if I wanted to pull away from it, I would always be pulled back into it. So I hardly did anything else in life except for this deck until it was finished. And so it only took 37 days or 30, 40, something like that days to finish. It was hand drawn. So what I did was I took cardstock and I hand drew every single card in tarot deck size. So every single card was 2.75 by 4.75 little card images, all hand drawn with pen and ink. And then the first edition of the deck was just that, the original line drawings scanned in, that's it. And so that was the first edition. And then after that, it became an exercise of honing the artistic element, more of the skill. Now I was like, okay, well, let me actually, learn how to be an artist, train myself in art. So I got myself a tablet, a stylus. And so this year, because of the pandemic, I had a lot of time on my hands to go on YouTube and teach myself how to draw. So, color, teach myself digital digital painting. And so I went back to the original black and white line drawings and did the digital painting. And now it's more of like a exercise of like technique, just learning the techniques and applying technique to the original line drawings.
Did you know that you were an artist before this? Did you know you could draw?
Well, I've always been able to draw. In fact, in high school, I had wanted to become an artist, like a professional, go into fine arts. So I wanted to pursue fine arts. And all of my art teachers have always told me to pursue fine arts. They actually went above and beyond. They would get interviewers to Cooper Union, Pratt Institute, Rhode Island School of Design to come to this school. They would go out of their way to show these people at the admissions people my portfolio and say, you have to see this girl. So I remember getting into the whole portfolio, doing this. And my mom was kind of like, what is my little daughter doing? She seems to be like very zoned in on something, like always in her room painting and drawing. And this was back when we didn't have anything digital. Every single piece in your portfolio had to take a photograph, and you had to create a microfiche. Remember those microfilms?
I do.
So you had to create the microfiche slides for all of your artwork. So I'm sitting there like creating a studio. I'm like a 16-year-old girl who created a studio in her bedroom and taking photographs with like my bed sheets hanging in the background, and like every single light focus on my bed sheets just to take these photos for the microfiche. And then my mom was kind of like, oh, that's not really happening. You're not really going to become a professional artist. And so I ended up in law. I became a lawyer. And then I think when we were speaking, what happened was I reached a pinnacle in my career where I was kind of like, well, I've achieved everything I've kind of set out to achieve, but I feel very hollow. Like it didn't do what society told me it was going to do for my life purpose. So that's kind of where I revisited tarot. I started revisiting all of these things that had been such a core part of who I was in terms of the part that nobody else influenced. That would be the occult, that would be the tarot, divination, all of these aspects that nobody else influenced were interests of mine that now I began to revisit. So first it was the occult, and then it became, creativity plus occult. And so that's why, now I revisited that. But I've always known I liked to doodle.
So good. So good. So I actually had another couple of questions about spirit keepers, if I may. Mm-hmm. First of all, what is a spirit keeper?
Spirit keepers, I was trying to find a word that was a little bit more generic, something that could be like, it could kind of envelop many different perspectives and viewpoints. That's the reason I went with spirit keepers, because every single tradition and culture has your more specific words for what that is, right? So I think spirit keeper is more direct in that it describes. It's somebody who, not gatekeeper, but somebody who's at that gateway, that threshold point, who is able to kind of navigate the physical materialized world and the spiritual world, like this sentience or something that's going on that seems to have personality, but is intangible in the spirit world. And so I think these mediums are able to kind of connect between the two worlds. And so spirit keeper just felt like a very generic, descriptive way to describe that without getting too specific, because I think specific words today have societal, preconceived notions attached to it. And I didn't want that. So that's the reason I called it that. But I think we all know what it means. It's just somebody who navigates both worlds.
I love it. I love it. So I know with one edition of Spirit Keepers, you did individual decks for people and each had a name.
Yes, the Vitruvian.
Yes. Can you tell us about this? I don't believe that anyone else at any other time in the history of tarot, I don't think this has ever been done before. Am I wrong?
I don't know. I assume it's been done. I can't give you an example. I can't give an example, but I just assume that it's been done.
And I think you invented this. I don't know that for sure, but I do think you invented it. So talk to me about that and how that worked and what that process was.
Well, I think every deck is different. I don't think you can say every deck. We've had conversations about animism and are decks alive? Do decks have personalities? I think there's no blanket answer for everything. I think it's very case specific. Even down to decks, even the same deck for, I have two Rider-Waite-Smith decks. One deck seems to be possessed with something just based on the conditions around it. Another deck is just like a dud, right? It's just pieces of cardboard. So because of that, I think when I started getting into the Spirit Keeper's Tarot, just all of the conditions around it, very specific case-specific conditions, I felt like there was something like sentient. I don't want to use the word sentient because then you start thinking like it's alive the way humans are alive. It's not that. It's just there's something in it, right? There's more space in it for other spirit entities to occupy it. There's like a little more space in there for that to happen. It's more of a deeper battery of some kind. And so then I guess because I'm the person who, if you run into a wall, I apologize to the wall. I'm very careful about my stuffed animals. Like I feel like if they're not placed a certain way, they won't have friends. I can't leave a stuffed animal by itself because the stuffed animal will get lonely. I have to make sure they have little tea parties. So, and just within that realm of personality, it just makes sense that it would translate into the tarot, where you kind of feel like, oh, they have feelings. It's not that I think in some objective way they have feelings, but it's just the way I approach life, right? The way I would approach stuffed animals, the way I would approach running into a wall. This is the way I approach tarot cards.
So now I have a question, right? I have a theory that there are two types of people who name their cars and people who don't. So
Okay.
given that description of your personality, does your car have a name?
No, my cards don't have names.
So see, that blew my theory right out of the water. That's hilarious. So this is funny because I'm not as much of an animist as you are, but my cars always have a name.
That's so funny.
Isn't that funny? So and I laugh at that, because we can get into these arguments in the tarot community about, are your cards alive? Are they just cardboard and ink? Is there something more? We can have that conversation forever, and it's even better if wine is involved.
The answers vary when wine is involved.
But I think it is true that even those of us, like myself, who will be like, I'm not an animist, but yet we don't want other people touching our cards, or we'll be the first to say, so what did the cards say? Mm-hmm. I think we all give them some quality that way, don't we?
Yeah, for sure.
So let's pivot just a little bit. I want to talk about StaarCon. And you are our headline speaker on Saturday. You'll be doing a 90-minute presentation. And for now, we'll keep that topic secret. However, we are lucky enough that you will also be doing a presentation on Sunday. Can we talk just a little bit about what you're going to be sharing with us on Sunday?
On exorcisms. Yeah. What would you like to know about that?
Everything. And I realize if I wanted to know everything, I will wait for StaarCon patiently. But, exorcism for me I know nothing about it beyond I saw and read The Exorcist.
I haven't seen that movie.
Really?
No, I haven't seen it.
So I don't really and religiously, I grew up, my dad was a United Methodist minister, and the Methodists are like as intellectual as you can get. There's no, it's just, there's not a lot of occult thought, So the idea of spirit possession to me is like a very Catholic thing and not something that we as Methodists would have done. So I don't know. You tell me.
Well, I think I look more at exorcism as what you can go to any part of the world and you talk to their more folk religious practitioners. There is some form of exorcism. There's some form of belief around it. And then when you look at different forms of psychosis and neurosis, there's just, and how like a lot of, there's the epileptic seizure connection that people are starting to explore. A lot of this is untread territory. So no one can say we know what's going on, but I just feel like it's also ignorant to say that nothing is going on, right? So you can't say you know what's going on, but you can't also say you there's nothing. Something is going on. We're just seeing two schools of thought trying to answer that question without talking to each other. You have the exorcists, the folk practitioners, and then you have the psychologists. And I think there's something that can be learned if you merge the two or try to figure out where that common denominator lies. I don't have a background in psychology, but I've seen a lot of exorcisms in the Taoist tradition. In a lot of Taiwanese culture, they do believe in spirit possession. It's in my family. There's stories that I grew up with, and then there's things that I've seen that I don't know what that is. And I think when I was smaller, I was just very easy to say, well, that's just someone who's nuts. I can fake that. I can do it too. Like, oh, I'm possessed too. And so that was kind of the end of the discussion for me for a very long time. But then the more I think about it, and then the more you meet people and see things in this world, I don't know. I think it's something that is possible. And when you travel the world and see different indigenous cultures, different witch traditions as well, they all believe this thing. And then not only that, but the exorcistic rituals are all strikingly similar. Wow. They're all very much the same. When you look at the Catholic tradition versus a Buddhist tradition, sure, they're using different books, different liturgy, different recitations, different mannerisms. But when you look at the eyes of the priest or the eyes of a shaman, like there's the energy, the aura of these people doing these rituals that is exactly the same. Even when you go into South America, there's something about it. And so that's where my interest has lied for many, many years, is to try to understand what that common denominator and what is that spirit thing that is interacting and engaging with the human world that is creating this phenomenon. And so that's something I wanted to talk about.
Wow, I cannot wait for that. That is so fascinating. And there are really two things that came to me when you were saying that. One is when you talk about that place where spirituality and psychology meet, that's tarot reading.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So you are the right person to make this exploration. And the other thing is, rarely in my career, I have met people who were very sane. I mean, from my estimation, very sane, who were experiencing what they felt was a spirit possession. Mm-hmm. And they suffered greatly. And, again, my own background would be to kind of poo-poo that. But I thought, and I didn't have the skill or the knowledge to be able to do much with it, except, see what the cards said about it. But I have seen it enough to recognize it is a real phenomenon. So we will look forward to that at StaarCon, as well as your headline presentation. And before we say goodbye today, I would love us to do a reading. You've got a deck with you. What deck? Oh, and that is Spirit Keepers. Oh, so beautiful. That is.
Oh, thank you.
That is lovely. So Spirit Keepers is entirely grayscale. Is that right?
The first one was black and white because it's just pen and ink. This one is sepia tone, where I just added sepia colors just so that there's a little bit more visual interest. And then the third edition, which I'm working on right now, is full color.
Oh, so great. So great. All right. So what I would like us to do, I am working with this is my workhorse right now. It's the Waite Smith that comes in a little tin.
That has been my workhorse forever. I love the what is the Centennial Edition?
Yes.
I love that one.
Absolutely. So what I would like us each to do is think about StaarCon, the very first StaarCon, which will be January 2021, and pull one card to give us some thought or information about it. And I'll let you choose whether you want to read first or want me to read first. But let's start and each pull a card. Okay.
Okay.
So you let me know when you're ready if you want to go first or you want me to go first.
The Dark Horse. This is the Seven of Wands and the Emperor. So they're both fire cards. We both got fire. That's really interesting. And fire, I always associate with spring, like the new beginnings, the spring equinox, the start of something, but it's also sort of great potential. But anyway, I'm not reading my card. Seven of Wands. So this card, what I did here is it shows a great opposition, but it's somebody who is like all of the factors are stacked against the Dark Horse. Dark Horse means the underdog, somebody that other people kind of, almost with Schadenfreude, think that they're going to fail or expect to fail. But I hope that this card conveys that this person's not going to fail. Like if you look at that, you are rooting for the underdog. You know that this person has a lot of fight in him and he is going to get it, right? And so that's what I see. I see there are a lot of cards stacked against this situation, but at the end of the day, this is going to be something that is going to prevail. And it's also not only going to prevail, but it's going to come out on top in a way that is going to surprise everybody.
Oh, that is beautiful and makes me happy. And it makes a lot of sense the timing ain't great. We've got pandemic, we've got contentious election. We've got a lot going on that makes it not the easiest time to start something new, but you got to do what you got to do. And I got the Emperor, which for me does bring some solidity here and is about, in many ways, community leadership, community excellence, and the sharing of knowledge, which is exactly what we're about. So one way or the other, pandemic or no, we're going to make this happen. And Benebell Wen, I am so happy that you are part of this and that you are part of the energy that is bringing this into being.
And I like how we did the 2-card reading where it's almost like I told the beginning of the story, and your card ended the story. And they're both fire cards. So it shows that it's kind of a sign that it's meant to be read together.
Absolutely. So beautiful. So if people want to learn more about you, how can they do that?
Just go to benebellwen.com. I'm also on Instagram as @Bellwen. And those are the places that you're going to find me.
Beautiful. And of course, we will find you in January at StaarCon. I want to thank you so much for being part of the original StaarCon family. Years from now, we will tell great stories of this. And I want to thank you for being my guest today on StaarCast.
Absolutely my pleasure.
Thanks for joining us for StaarCast. For more information about our annual conference, visit us online at StaarCon.com. That's StaarCon.com. We are looking forward to seeing you in January.